In 1925, a swamp in Florida sold for more than a Manhattan penthouse. Here's what went catastrophically wrong. Between 1920 and 1926, Florida's population exploded by over 50%. Trains arriving in Miami were so packed that passengers had to sleep in the station. But this wasn't a natural migration. It was a manufactured frenzy, one of the first modern financial manias, and it teaches us exactly how hype becomes collapse. Exhibit 1, the price tag. In 1924, a single acre of swampland in Coral Gables went for $25,000, equivalent to roughly $450,000 today. Oceanfront property in Miami Beach commanded even more. So why did people pay mansion prices for wetlands? Because they were told a story. The story went like this: Florida was about to become the American Riviera. Railroads had just arrived. Wealthy northerners were fleeing winters. Miami would rival New York. All you had to do was buy now, hold for 6 months, and sell to the next buyer for double. It was pure arithmetic, or so it seemed. Exhibit 2, the salesmen. Real estate promoters weren't just marketing land, they were marketing dreams, and they did it with an intensity we'd now call predatory. Advertisements promised paradise at your fingertips. Brochures showed palm trees, yachts, and mansions. What they didn't show was the swamp. One promoter, Carl Fisher, literally dredged mangrove swamps and sold the drained land as Miami Beach. He hired an orchestra to play on a barge while potential buyers toured. He chartered trains full of wealthy prospects from the north. The machinery wasn't just persuasion, it was theater, psychology, and manufactured scarcity all at once. Exhibit 3, the speculators. Most buyers never intended to build homes. They were speculators, people betting on price appreciation alone. They'd buy a lot for $5,000, hold it for 3 months, then flip it for $10,000. No development, no improvement, just the assumption that the next buyer would pay more. This is the signature pattern of a bubble. When the majority of transactions are speculative, when people buy not because the asset produces value, but because they expect someone else to pay more, you have a house of cards. And by 1925, Florida was one massive, tottering structure. Exhibit 4, the logistics collapse. By late 1925, the railroad system couldn't handle the volume of materials and people flowing into Florida. Trains backed up. Lumber sat in yards for months. Construction costs skyrocketed. For the first time, the math stopped working. Developers couldn't build fast enough. Prices stalled. Then came September 1926. A hurricane hit Miami with catastrophic force. The storm surge flooded developments, buildings under construction collapsed, people died, insurance companies refused payouts. The psychological shift was instant, from this is the future to I need to sell now. Exhibit 5, the exit stampede. Speculators who'd bought land for $5,000 tried to sell it for $3,000, then $2,000, then $500. No one was buying, the auction block had become a fire sale. Some lots returned to being worth less than the taxes owed on them. Fortunes evaporated in weeks. By 1928, the Florida boom had completely deflated. Banks that financed the speculation failed. Investors lost life savings. Towns that had boomed were ghost towns. The swamps remained swamps. The palaces were never built, and the people who bought at the peak, many never recovered financially. So why did this happen? Because the machinery of speculation is seductive. It tells you that you're not gambling, you're investing. It shows you charts of rising prices and tells you the trend is unstoppable. It creates social proof. Everyone you know is buying, so it must be real, and it works until it doesn't. The Florida land boom wasn't an anomaly, it was a test run. The same pattern repeated in the stock market crash of 1929. It happened in tech stocks in 2000. It happened in housing in 2008. Humans are wired to follow crowds and chase returns. The machinery of hype doesn't change, only the asset does. What made Florida unique was that it happened on a stage everyone could see. Newspapers covered it obsessively. Word of mouth spread it. The bubble was transparent, and yet people bought anyway. Because understanding that a bubble exists doesn't make you immune to it. Knowing the machinery doesn't stop you from riding it up. The swamps of Florida are still there. Some have been developed into cities. Some remain wild, but the land that sold for $25,000 an acre in 1924, much of it never justified that price through productive value. It was always just a bet on the next buyer, and when the bet stopped, so did the boom. This is how financial manias work. They start with a real trend, railroads arriving in Florida. They morph into a story, the American Riviera. They become a casino where buying and selling is the game. And they end when enough people realize the emperor has no clothes. The machinery doesn't care about truth, it only cares about motion. So that's why swamps in Florida sold for mansion prices in the 1920s, not because the land was worth it, but because the story was irresistible, and why fortunes turned to dust, because stories always end. When they do, the swamps are still swamps and the buyers are left holding the bill. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe to uncover the next financial mania before it collapses, because history doesn't repeat, but it absolutely rhymes. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.